Okay, pause. Read that text message one more time, because I don't think it registered the first time around. A grown man on parole, fresh out, barely back in the daylight, is allegedly booking a one-way to a city his probation officer never signed off on, and getting attitude when the woman on the other end doesn't roll out the welcome mat. That's where we're starting today. Not at the drama, at the receipt. Because once you see that text, the rest of this story stops being messy and starts being something else entirely. And nah, I didn't think we'd be back here either. I genuinely thought the last cycle was the last cycle. I thought we closed this book. I thought we filed it under lessons learned, chapter done, characters moved on. But here we are, June 2026, fresh receipts, new city, same energy. And the wildest part? The pattern hasn't even tried to disguise itself. It's the same playbook, just printed on different paper. So if you've been here since the beginning, you already know this isn't a new story. This is a sequel that swore it wasn't coming. Real quick before we dig in, hit that subscribe, tap the bell, leave a like if you've been following this saga since the beginning. Y'all already know what kind of breakdown is about to follow, so let's get into it. So here's the frame. We're talking about Chrisean Rock, Baltimore-based, training out of Upton Boxing under coach Calvin Ford, the same gym that produced world champions. She's preparing for her professional debut. The woman is locked in. She's got a coach calling her phone. She's got a son in the house. She's got a career to launch. Meanwhile, Blueface, Jonathan Porter for the government, just got out of a California state facility in late 2025 after almost 2 years served on a 4-year probation violation sentence tied back to a 2021 North Hollywood assault. He's on supervision. Conditions. The kind of conditions that say don't cross state lines without permission. That's the setup. Now watch what allegedly happened next. And before we get into the meat of it, understand what Upton Boxing actually is. This isn't a Planet Fitness with heavy bags in the corner. This is the gym that produced Gervonta Davis. This is Calvin Ford's house. The same Calvin Ford that HBO based a character on in The Wire. When somebody trains at Upton, they're not playing dress up. They're either getting eaten alive in week 1 or they're locking in. Chrisean, by every visible account, locked in. That detail matters because it changes the math of everything we're about to talk about. She didn't relocate to Baltimore to do content. She relocated to a city where her schedule belongs to a coach, not a comment section. According to Chrisean, Blue booked a flight from California to Baltimore. She posted the screenshots. She posted his texts. And then she said the quiet part out loud. He booked a flight to Baltimore. This is him texting me. He keep trying to play. The reason why I ain't really air this out is because I'm trying to protect you. You on probation. You can get hurt playing around in Baltimore without no permission. Chrisean, on her recent live stream, captured by Hot New Hip Hop, June 2026. Let that one sit for a second, because that's not a girlfriend tweet. That's not a clout grab. That's a woman holding a knife and reminding you she's holding it. And the receipt she shows next, the alleged text from Blueface that reads, in her screenshot, just LMK, if I should cancel SMH, you always get weird after I spend my money on S asterisk, so annoying. Asterisk her reply, all 5 letters of it. You just a weirdo. Cold. And read the texture of that exchange one more time. The framing, after I spend my money, is the tell. That's not the language of a man trying to reconnect with a co-parent. That's the language of a man who thinks affection is a transaction with a refund window. The receipt isn't the flight. The receipt is the entitlement embedded in the sentence. The flight is just where the entitlement got booked. That is demonic. Like, keep playing with me. I'll tell you probation where you was really at, bro, she said on the same stream, per Hot New Hip Hop. Okay, Junior is not my biological son. R.I.P. to his father, Ronnie. Blueface posted X the night of March 6th, 2026, as reported by TMZ. He went further, said he couldn't continue the plot of pretending to be the dad, said it doesn't feel right, said the actual father is no longer with us. Chrisean's ex-Karen Ronnie Doe can reportedly passed away in 2025. A whole human being, reduced to a footnote in a tweet. And think about the cruelty of the structure there. The man didn't just deny paternity. He weaponized the death of another man to do it. He used a graveyard as a punctuation mark. That's not a clarification. That's a flex. And once you read it that way, you can't unread it. Every retweet of that post is somebody at a funeral applauding the eulogy of someone they never met. Chrisean Rock fired back on Instagram, writing that Blueface dissed her and her son by suggesting they're dumb on a live stream. She did not address Blueface's claim that he's not Junior's dad. She also posted, "Pray for Jonathan," reported TMZ. Pray for Jonathan. Read it again. That's not a clapback. That's a woman who's done arguing. That two-word post is the entire emotional arc of this saga compressed. There's no caps lock. There's no expletive. There's no follow-up post 17 minutes later. Just 3 words and a period. People who are still fighting type paragraphs. People who are done type prayers. And anybody who's ever been in the kind of relationship where the only thing left to say is the spiritual version of goodbye knows exactly what register she was writing in. And then the kicker, the alleged Blueface text she read out loud on stream. To be honest, I want to take a break from everything and hide somewhere on some peace type of stuff. I won't leave it all. If not, it's okay. You don't owe me anything. You don't have to. Honestly, when I thought to run, I thought of you. I read that 3 times. Because depending on who you ask, that's either a man genuinely cracking under pressure or a man fishing for something to hold on to right before he denies you in public. Chrisean's read was the second one. Her words, "He lied. He deceived me. He made it seem like he needed help." And here's where the psychology gets interesting. That text has the exact architecture of what behavioral analysts sometimes call future faking, painting a vivid emotional picture you have no intention of executing on, specifically because the painting itself is the leverage. He's not asking for shelter. He's asking to be needed. Notice the structure. Vulnerability claim, then a permission release, "You don't owe me anything," then the hook, "When I thought to run, I thought of you." That's 3 moves. That's not a confession. That's a sequence. And the people most fluent in that sequence are the people who've used it before on other women in other cities with other audiences watching. But, and I'll Steelman this for one beat, there's a version of that text where he means every word. Where a man 2 years removed from the streets, fresh off a bid, watching his career half collapse, genuinely doesn't know who else to text at 2 a.m. That version exists. We can't pretend it doesn't. The problem isn't that the text might be sincere. The problem is that he sent it 96 hours before he denied her son in public. Sincerity has a shelf life. His expired faster than the cell signal. Now, connect the dots, because the dots actually connect. Walk it back. She says Blue was consistent, and I quote, for a couple weeks with their son. Sending Pampers, wipes, the kind of low-key, no cameras kind of dad stuff that fans had genuinely been rooting for. There was even a moment, that infamous nail salon clip from earlier this month, where she's literally crying in the car at the idea that Blue is babysitting Junior while she trains. Tears, joy, the whole thing. And that clip is the part that haunts me, honestly. Because in it, you can see, in real time, a woman letting herself believe that the worst version of someone might finally not be the only version. That's not a clip you can fake. That's not a clip you record for clout. People who film themselves crying for engagement don't cry like that. That was somebody catching her breath after years of holding it. And the fact that the same week ends with him publicly disowning the kid, that's the part that should make the Steelman go quiet. Then, and this is the part, Coach Calvin Kelly starts calling. Asking about the baby, asking about her schedule, asking the kind of routine questions any responsible coach asks. And according to Chrisean, that's when Blue's energy shifted. He hate that I have to answer to people. Coach Kelly kept calling me. You don't like stuff like that. We don't need him. Blue's mad because we don't need him. Pause on that one. That's not co-parenting. That's territory. That's a man who only shows up when there's a vacuum to fill. And the second somebody else, a coach, not a love interest, starts taking up oxygen in her schedule, suddenly the diapers stop and the cryptic, "I want to hide somewhere" text start. The deleted then reposted timestamps on her stream, the text she chose to screenshot first versus second, the order she dropped them in, all of it lines up with somebody who's been holding ammo and finally got tired of holding it. And let me sharpen the point. The coach isn't a romantic threat. He's a structural one. A romantic threat you can fight with flirtation. A structural threat, A man with a clipboard, a fight card, and a Rolodex of promoters. You can't outcharm. He represents a version of her future that doesn't have a Blueface chapter in it. That's the threat. That's why the energy shifted the second Calvin Ford's name started appearing on her caller ID with regularity. It wasn't jealousy. It was obsolescence anxiety. Different animal. Actually, hold on. Back up. This is the part. The cops. Midstream. While Blueface was live in his own house, denying any affiliation with Chrisean or Junior, somebody called the police on him. He paused. He visibly tensed up. Check out loud. He played it off. According to Chrisean, she and Junior were inside the house when it happened. Her version, when I insinuated the baby was there, somebody sent cops to his house. We're in the house. His cops be banging on the door. He getting scared, whether that's true or not. And we're stamping allegedly on it twice because nobody outside the house has confirmed it. That one moment broke something. Because right after the police showed up, Blueface allegedly told her he was going to publicly say the baby wasn't there, to get the calls to stop. And Chrisean's read on that? She was furious, because it confirmed what she'd been suspecting. He'd rather lie about Junior being in the building than catch heat for it being true. Demonic. Her word, used 4 times in one stream. And 4 is not an accident. That's a vocabulary choice. People reaching for demonic 4 times in one broadcast aren't reaching for a slang term. They're reaching for the only word in their personal dictionary that scales to what they actually feel. It's a tell. The same way somebody screaming, "I'm fine" 4 times isn't fine. Repetition under emotional pressure isn't filler. It's an X-ray. Let me zoom in on one fragment because it tells you everything. The clause. He left the baby with his dad asleep downstairs. That's it. One sentence. No screenshot. No video. Just her saying her toddler was left with grandpa on a different floor with no communication. If that's accurate, allegedly, that's the moment the co-parenting conversation ended. Not the denial tweet. Not the probation threat. That sentence. Because in her telling, that wasn't a lapse. It was strategy. You did that out of spite. You didn't want me to go to practice. You wanted me to hang out with you. A man on probation, allegedly using a child as a leash. That's the lens. And I want to be really precise about this because the internet loves to make these stories about whether somebody's a good dad or a bad dad, and that's the wrong axis. The axis is whether the child is being used. Not loved or unloved. Used. As a tool, as a tether, as a reason to stay on her calendar. Because the moment a kid becomes a logistics weapon, the question of paternity becomes almost beside the point. You don't need DNA to weaponize a toddler. You just need access. And he had access. And then he didn't. And the timing of when he had it, and when he didn't lines up suspiciously well with what she was scheduled to do that day. Now look at how the media handled it. TMZ played it straight tabloid, focused on the denial, the Ronnie reveal, the Instagram clapback, didn't really lean into the probation angle. Hot New Hip Hop did the opposite. They ran with the probation threat as the headline, treated the denial as background, framed Chrisean as the one with leverage. And then the blogs, all about the tea, Hollywood Unlocked, Live Bites, went full receipts mode, focused on the flight dates, the screenshots, the timeline of who was where and when. 3 different stories. Same incident. And the reason that matters isn't because one outlet got it right and the others got it wrong. They all got it partially right. The reason it matters is because of what each editorial choice reveals about what each audience is paying to see. TMZ's audience wants celebrity drama with consequences abstracted out. The parole stuff is too real for their lane. Hot New Hip Hop's audience wants leverage and power dynamics, the chess match between 2 famous people. The Receipt Blog's audience wants forensic detail, flight times, ticket numbers, the metadata of a meltdown. 3 audiences. 3 products, 1 incident. The story isn't the story. The framing is. The loudest counter-narrative? The one bouncing around comment sections all week? She's lying for clout. She always does this. She's exploiting her own kid for streams. And I'm going to steelman it for one beat because the argument isn't completely empty. Chrisean has, on prior occasions, walked back claims, deleted streams, said something one week and the opposite the next. That's documented. But here's where the Steelman falls apart. She has the texts. She has the flight info. She has the alleged hide somewhere message. Blue himself, on March 7th, publicly tweeted a denial of paternity that wasn't even about the probation thing, meaning the denial timeline predates the Baltimore receipts by months. So if she's making it up for clout, she's somehow making up something that matches a paper trail he half confirmed by responding to it at all. That's not a clout grab. That's evidence. And there's a second flaw in the she's doing it for clout theory that nobody's surfacing. Clout chasing has a tempo. It's loud, it's frequent, it's posted across every platform within hours, it's edited, it's clipped, it's repackaged. What Chrisean did is the opposite tempo. She sat on the receipts. She mentioned them in passing. She buried the probation threat inside a longer rant instead of leading with it as a headline. People chasing clout don't bury the lead. They're the lead. The way she rolled this out reads like somebody who genuinely didn't want to use the nuclear option until the regular options had all failed. So here's the read nobody's running with. And it's not the she snitched angle. And it's not the he's a deadbeat angle. Both of those are surface. The actual read is this. Blueface needs Chrisean's storyline more than she needs his. Think about it. He's 2 years removed from relevance. He just got out. The streams pull numbers, sure, but the cultural relevance, the reason anybody outside hip-hop Twitter cared about him in the first place, was the crazy in love era, the reality show with Chrisean, the chaos as content. Without her, he's a former rapper with a boxing card and a denial tweet. With her, he's a story. She, meanwhile, has moved, literally, to a different city, into a real boxing gym, training with a coach who has produced world title contenders, preparing for a professional debut against Zena Zion that was scheduled for April 25th, 2026. That's a different life. That's a woman building something measurable. Wins, losses, a record. Not Twitter screenshots. Look at the asymmetry in the business case. His ceiling without her is streamer middle tier, undercard boxing novelty act, the occasional viral moment when he says something inflammatory. Her ceiling without him is legitimate athlete, a record, a sanctioning body, pay-per-view potential, a documentary about the woman who walked out of circus and into a gym. Those aren't comparable trajectories. One has a salary cap. The other has a championship belt at the top of it. And the man who can do math knows which side of that he wants to be parked on. That's the unspoken pressure under every text he sent. So when she said, and I'm quoting again, maybe he was pretending for another cause like he wanted something out of it. Maybe he wanted my soul. Maybe he wanted my money. Maybe he wanted my light. What she was describing, without using the word, is leverage extraction. The classic move of somebody whose currency is attention, trying to siphon it off somebody whose currency is becoming something else. And my light is the phrase that matters. Not money, not soul, light. Because attention economies are zero-sum at the top of the funnel. There are only so many eyeballs in a given week, and if hers are pointed at a heavy bag, his can't be parked in her comment section. He doesn't want the relationship. He wants the audience that came with the relationship. There's a difference. There's always been a difference. The Baltimore flight, in that read, isn't a romantic gesture. It's a re-engagement attempt by someone whose brand depends on her being in his orbit. The denial of Junior, in that read, isn't about paternity. It's about controlling the narrative. I can revoke my role in your storyline whenever I want, and you can't stop me. The alleged, I want to hide somewhere, you don't owe me anything message? That's not depression. That's a hook. Cold read. I know, but the timeline backs it. She trains. He texts. She ignores. He flies. She trains harder. He denies the kid in public. Police show up. He blames her. She drops the receipts. He goes quiet. Repeat. That loop, right there, is the pattern. And patterns in relationships aren't accidents. They're protocols. The same way an algorithm runs the same function over and over with slightly different inputs. Text, fly, deny, post, retreat, and produces slightly different outputs, but the same shape. If you map his behavior across the last 3 years against this exact sequence, you'll find iterations of it everywhere. With other women, with other moments of relevance loss, with other career inflection points. This isn't his first run of the script. It's just the first time the co-star has fully read it. The opposition's going to say I'm being unfair. that he's a struggling man trying to reconnect with a chaotic ex. Fine. But struggling men trying to reconnect don't usually fly across the country on probation without permission. They don't usually leave toddlers with grandpa on a different floor without telling mom. They don't usually post denial tweets one quarter and babysit videos the next. That's not struggle. That's strategy with bad PR. And the most unflattering part of all of it, she kept the door open for months. The diapers happened. The babysitting happened. The crying in the car with joy happened. She didn't manufacture that. She wanted to work. The receipts she's holding now are the receipts she was sitting on the whole time, hoping she wouldn't have to use them. That's the part that should make you feel something. Because what we're really watching, when you strip everything else away, is a woman doing the hardest thing a person in her position can do, which is choosing the future version of herself over the past version of a relationship. Most people never get there. Most people stay in a loop because the loop is familiar, and familiar feels like safety even when it isn't. She broke the loop. On stream. On purpose. With receipts. That's not messy. That's surgical. So where does this end up? Watch how the next 30 days play out. The probation threat is the variable nobody's pricing in yet. If Chrisean follows through, even a phone call, even an anonymous tip, even a screenshot forwarded to the wrong inbox, the California parole system doesn't need a courtroom to act. Out-of-state travel without authorization is a textbook violation, and Blue's already on the books for one. The second one doesn't get the benefit of the doubt. Don't be shocked if his August 22nd boxing card suddenly becomes a logistics problem. And the boxing thing matters because that card is his next paycheck and his next news cycle. Without it, his calendar for the rest of 2026 is essentially streaming, which is fine until it isn't. Streamers without a hook burn out in months. He needs Chrisean back on the timeline more than he needs the win. The economics of his calendar are brutal once you actually break it down. A successful boxing card with halfway decent promotion can clear six figures even on the influencer fight circuit. A bad streaming month? For figures, maybe five if he goes viral for the wrong reasons. The difference between Blueface in 2026 and Blueface in 2027 is whether that fight card happens. And the difference between whether that fight card happens and doesn't happen could be one phone call from a woman in Baltimore who's tired of being patient. That's not melodrama. That's the actual leverage map. Then there's the path that flips the table. The one where Junior's paternity actually gets settled, publicly, legally, definitively, and the denials stop being a Twitter game and start being a court filing. If Chrisean files for support, if she pushes the paternity question into a real proceeding, suddenly the RIP to Ronnie tweet stops being a clap and starts being a deposition exhibit. The next time Blue logs on to deny anything, he'll be denying it to a judge. That's a different room. And courtrooms don't grade on charisma. They grade on records. Tax records. Phone records. Travel records. The same flight he allegedly booked to Baltimore? Discoverable. The same text she screenshotted on stream? Admissible. The same denial tweet? Time-stamped, server-logged, archived by 12 different services within minutes of posting. Twitter is forever in a way that Twitter beefs aren't, and the second this stops being content and starts being a docket number, every joke he's ever made about not being the dad becomes a paragraph in a filing somebody's paralegal is going to read out loud at deposition. And the aftershock, 5 years out, is where the culture writes its real verdict. We're going to look back at this run, and one of two things happens. Either Chrisean becomes a legitimate fighter, the boxing career sticks, the Baltimore reset works, and this entire Blueface chapter gets compressed into a footnote. That's the man she escaped to build a real one. Or it doesn't stick, the gym phase fades, and the cycle keeps rolling, in which case this June stream becomes the part historians point to and say that was the off-ramp she didn't take. Both endings are still on the table. Both depend almost entirely on what she does in the next 90 days, not what he does. There's also a third path that nobody's talking about, and I want to put on the table because it's the most interesting outcome and also the most unlikely. The path where she becomes the story that gets written about her. Fighter, single mom, Baltimore underdog, the whole Hollywood arc. Not as a celebrity reset, but as the central character in a redemption narrative that has nothing to do with hip-hop and everything to do with sport. That's a documentary. That's a biopic. That's a Netflix 6-parter 5 years from now that opens with the June 2026 live stream as the cold open. And if that's the timeline we end up on, this exact week, this exact breakdown becomes the inciting incident of the second act. Blue's part is already written. His incentives don't change. He's going to do what he's done. Log on, deny, fly, post, deny again, and reach for the storyline whenever the streams get quiet. The question is whether anybody on her side keeps picking up the phone. I don't think they will. Not after this round. Something in her tone on that last stream, that there's no more time, there's just a season where I just got to let go all the way line, that didn't sound like a fight. That sounded like a funeral, and funerals don't reopen. That's the whole architecture of them. You don't bury something and then dig it up 6 months later when you're bored. The line between we're going through it and we went through it is a verb tense, and her verb tense has officially shifted to past. People in the present tense argue. People in the past tense pray. That's why pray for Jonathan is the most important 2 words of this entire cycle. It's not a wish. It's a tombstone with a hashtag. That's the read. That's the angle the blogs aren't running with, because the blogs need both of them in the story to keep selling clicks. We don't. So if this is the kind of breakdown you came for, the kind that actually looks at what the timeline is doing instead of just shouting about it, hit subscribe, tap the bell, drop your take in the comments. Tell me who you think is reading the room right and who's still playing checkers. Y'all already know where to find the next one. Let's keep going.